Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtodarashata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtodarashata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Vrindavana Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All excuse me. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 7, text number 24.
Oh, by the way, I just have to mention
Sridhar Srivas Thakur? Oh, Srivas Thakur. Oh.
Who's that?
He's an associate of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so I can speak a little. I didn't realize that. Okay, I can speak a little bit about that. Okay, well, I guess I can say something about Srivas Thakur before we read from the Bhagavatam. So Srivas Thakur was a very intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he is one of the Panchatattvas. So Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So he is so that verse is explaining all the different tattvas which are in the Panchatattva, the 5 different tattvas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that appeared with Lord Chaitanya, and also including Lord Chaitanya. So Srivas Thakur, he is the incarnation of Narada Muni. So he is a he's the you could say the emblem or the paragon of what a perfect devotee looks like. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he first started the Sankirtan movement, he would have nightly kirtans in the home of Srivas Thakur. This was his mercy upon Srivas Thakur and his family. And these kirtans were extremely confidential. So anybody who wasn't a very intimate devotee of the Lord wasn't allowed in, because the Lord was trying to preserve the confidentiality of the different ecstasies that he and the other devotees were experiencing in the kirtan. So at one point, there were some brahmanas, smarta brahmanas in Navadvip who were desiring to get into the kirtan, but because they weren't devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they weren't allowed. So one such person was Gopal Chapala, who he was so envious of Srivas Thakur and the other devotees that he put all the paraphernalia for worshipping Durga outside of Srivas Thakur's door, so that when people, including wine and other things, so that when people walked by, they would see all this paraphernalia there, and then they would think that Srivas Thakur and the others were basically Shaktas, and they were worshipping Durga Devi. So as a result of this offense toward Srivas Thakur, Gopal, he contracted, leprosy? he contracted leprosy. And it wasn't until he begged forgiveness from Srivas Thakur that he was cured of this leprosy by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So just see the exalted position of Srivas Thakur, that just by an offense to him, this Gopal Chapali, he was, his whole life practically was destroyed. So yeah, Srivas Thakur is a very exalted, intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I wish I realized that it was his appearance day today, because then I probably would have given a whole class on him. But anyway, that's some glorification of Srivas Thakur. And if anybody has anything.
What year was he born?
I don't know the exact year, but it was around the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a bit older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I could read it, just tell something about him.
Okay.
Ron, it's my fault for skipping it. She was Pandit, or she was Thakur, with the fifth member of the Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivas, Adi Gaur Bhaktabinda. He lived in Navadvip before the advent of Lord Chaitanya. Srivas led his brothers Sri Ram Pandit, Sri Nidhi Pandit, and Sripati in their devotional lives of singing Krishna's names, worshipping the Lord, and bathing 3 times a day in the Ganges. He would meet with Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, and they studied Bhagavatam together and prayed for an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because only an avatar of Krishna could re-establish Vaishnavism among the staunch atheists, logicians, and proud pundits harassing Nadia at that time. Malini, the wife of Srivas, was a constant friend of Shachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya's mother. She served Nimai as a nurse. When Lord Vishrambar, that's Lord Chaitanya, appeared, the hearts of all the devotees were filled with parental affection. Gaurachandra loved Malini and Srivas as a second mother and father. Srivas Angam, that's his house, was located 200 yards north of Nimai's house. Srivas Pandit's palatial home had large, comfortable rooms, a high protective boundary wall, and lush, densely foliated gardens and groves. Every night, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu and his dearest friends would enjoy ecstatic kirtans here and taste the mellows of Vrindavan. Here, the raging Muslim Qazi broke the sacred Mridanga drum in his foolish attempt to stop Sri Krishna's Sankirtan movement. Henceforward, Srivasangam was known as the Kol Banga Dunga, the place where the Mridanga had been broken. The Qazi eventually passed an ordinance prohibiting Sankirtan. Violators would be converted to the Muslim faith and lose their property. Although most Nadia residents panicked over this, Srivas Pandit laughed at the fanatical law. Within Srivasangam, Lord Gauranga showed his divine form to all his eternal associates. That means that there was it 28 hours, 26 hours of
Mahaprakash.
Mahaprakash, yeah, where he actually revealed that he was Krishna. The house of Srivas Pandit served as the headquarters of the Gauranga Sankirtan movement. The daily Bhagavatam classes, nightly kirtans, and many confidential Braja pastimes of Lord Chaitanya occurred here. Srivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Acharya, the learned chiefs of the Brahmin community, dedicated all their energy to the Lord's Harinam Sankirtan movement. They surrendered their bodies, minds, homes, friends, family, and all possessions to Lord Chaitanya's service. They knew no other gods or goddesses. Srivas Thakur maintained his family, not because they were his relatives, but because they were Lord Chaitanya's loving servants. Srivas Pandit represents the marginal living entity, Tatastha Jiva. The devotees headed by Srivas are described as Lord Chaitanya's smaller limbs, his faith, eyes, etc. They all took part in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. With them, Lord Chaitanya spread the Sankirtan movement. Srivas Thakur is Narada Muni, an intergalactic preacher and constant associate of the Lord. Srivas Thakur ki jai.
Jai. Okay, so I thought of one other pastime with Srivas Thakur, but oh yeah, his son dying. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, one other pastime which illustrates the very exalted nature of Srivas Thakur is that during one of the kirtans at Srivasangana, Srivas Thakur's son, he'd actually died in the other room. And the women, the women of the household who were there, they were crying very loudly. And so Srivas Thakur went to the other room and he said, "Why are you all crying?" And they showed him his son, who had left his body, and they said, just hush, keep quiet, don't disturb Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan. And so then he went to the other room, and then they were, engaging in kirtan. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, something's wrong, like something has happened, And Srivas Thakur said, no, Mahaprabhu, just, let's just keep the kirtan going. And the Mahaprabhu said, no, what's something bad has happened, what's happened? And Srivas Thakur said, anyway, my son died, but let's just keep the kirtan going, come on. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, okay, well, your son died, just, let's just go see. So then he went to the other room, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually brought the soul back, the soul of Srivas Thakur's son, back into his body, and he woke up and he began to speak. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has one song, I think in Sharanagati, whatever book it's in, but where he's narrating some teachings that Srivas Thakur's son spoke in the form of a song. It's a very nice song. So Srivas Thakur, he was so exalted, even his son died, but he just wanted to do kirtan with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was callous, to all the comings and goings of the material world. So, yes, Srivas Thakur ki jai. Okay, so we'll move on to the Bhagavatam. I think for the sake of time, I'll just chant the verse myself. Is that better? Okay. Tripishtapam kim ganayantyabedhya. I guess we can do responsibly. Okay, we'll try again. Tripishtapam kim ganayantyabedhya. Mantra brghunam anushikshtarthah. Navipragobindagavishwaranam bhavantya bhadrani nareshwaranam. Tripishtapam, all the demigods, including Lord Brahma. Kim, what? Ganayanti, they care for. Abhedya mantraha, whose determination to carry out the orders of the spiritual master is unbreakable. Bhrigurnam, of the disciples of Bhrigu Muni like Shukracharya. Anushikshita artha, deciding to follow the instructions. Na, not. Vipra, the brāhmanas. Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Go, the cows. Ishvaranam, of persons favoring or considering worshipable. Bhavanti, are. Abhadrani, any misfortunes. Nara Ishvaranam, or of kings who follow this principle. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Because of their firm determination to follow the instructions of Shukracharya, his disciples, the demons, are now unconcerned about the demigods. In fact, kings or others who have determined faith in the mercy of brahmanas, cows, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and who always worship these three, are always strong in their position. From the instructions of Lord Brahma, it is understood that everyone should very faithfully worship the brahmanas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the cows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Go Brahmana Hitayacha. He is always very kind to cows and brahmanas. Therefore, one who worships Govinda must satisfy him by worshipping the brahmanas and cows. If a government worships the brahmanas, the cows, and Krishna, Govinda, it is never defeated anywhere. Otherwise, it must always be defeated and condemned everywhere. At the present moment, all over the world, governments have no respect for brahmanas, cows, and Govinda, and consequently there are chaotic conditions all over the world. In summary, although the demigods were very powerful in material opulence, the demons defeated them in battle because the demigods had behaved disrespectfully toward a brahmana, Bṛhaspati, who is their spiritual master. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shreshtam Manamapi Shachi Putramatra Svarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Marturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagarna Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagarna Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse and this pastime in general is dealing with the principle of respecting versus disrespecting the brahmanas. So the brahmanas, what is it? Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So the brahmanas are very dear to the Lord because they're very pious. They're very pious individuals. You have to perform a lot of pious activity to become a brahmana, to take birth as a brahmana, or to become a brahmana in general. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes in the 18th chapter the qualities of the brahmanas, the 9 qualities of the brahmanas. Shamo, the verse is Shamo Dhammatapa Shaucham, Kshantirajavamevacha, what is it? Jnanam Vijnanamastikam Brahmakarma Swabhavajam. So, Shamo, the brahmanas are very peaceful. Dhammas, they're self-controlled. Tapa, they're very austere. They're tolerant. They're simple. They're straightforward. Shaucham, they're clean. Tolerant, simple in the sense that they're very straightforward and honest. They're very knowledgeable, and they have realization of that knowledge too. And they're very religious. And these are the qualities by which the brahmanas work. So one has to perform a lot of pious activity and be a very pious person in order to be considered a brahmana, or in order to take birth as a brahmana. And so Shukracharya, he did this. He was very austere. He was performing austerity. What he was doing, actually, he gave up all eating and drinking, and he hung himself upside down from a tree. That was his austerity. And so by his austerity, austerity is a very pious activity, so by this he acquired, Brahmateja. He acquired some kind of Shakti, some kind of power. And therefore, he had some power to empower the demons to defeat the demigods. He was acting as the priest or the guru of the demons. And similarly, Bṛhaspati was very qualified. He was extremely qualified. In fact, he was so qualified that he was respected both by the demons and the demigods. They both acknowledged him as an authority. And we can see from this pastime that he was really keeping everything going for the demigods. Just by him leaving, he didn't even curse them. It's not like he said, I curse you to be defeated by the demons. He just left. That's all he did. So just without his presence there, the demigods were overtaken, they were conquered by the demons, such as the power of Bṛhaspati. And also he was, just to get the position of acting as the spiritual master of all the demigods, of very great and pious personalities. You have to have some Shakti. So therefore, for demigods or demons or whoever, this worship of the brahmanas or respect for the brahmanas is a universal principle. Even in this world, Prabhupada's mentioning in the purport how in this world, and not just even in the purport, the text of the Bhagavatam is saying that kings or others who have determined faith in the mercy of the brahmanas, the cows, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and who always worship these three are always strong in their position. And then Prabhupada mentions in the purport that at the present moment, governments have no respect for the brahmanas, the cows, or Govinda. And therefore there's chaos everywhere. The brahmanas are meant to be the head of society. They give moral guidance, they give spiritual guidance to the kshatriyas. And so without this moral and spiritual guidance to the kshatriyas, the kshatriyas become overcome or overwhelmed by rajas, by the mode of passion. And therefore the whole society becomes just completely chaotic. And so, like Prabhupada saying in the purport, we can see this even nowadays. Nowadays there's practically no brahmanas, and even the brahmanas that are there, Prabhupada says there's some brahmanas in South India. Prabhupada says in Kali Yuga there's no real brahmanas, but in South India there's some real brahmanas. So without the guidance of the brahmanas, the whole thing just goes nuts, just goes crazy. And everything falls apart. So nowadays, nobody's respecting the brahmanas, nobody's acknowledging the brahmanas as authorities. And therefore, it's created a very chaotic condition all over the world. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, one of his main missions in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world was to establish, first and foremost, a class of brahmanas to guide society in a proper direction. But the point is made by Srila Prabhupada and by Shastra in general that not all brahmanas are created equal. For instance, while both Bṛhaspati and Shukracharya were brahmanas and spiritual masters for the demons and the demigods, Shukracharya, later we'll see in the 8th canto, that Bali Maharaj rejected Shukracharya. Just like Indra, kind of informally, not really. He didn't absolutely reject Bṛhaspati, but he offended Bṛhaspati. But Bali Maharaj out and out just completely rejected Shukracharya. But what was his reward? His reward was that he got the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He attained the lotus feet of Lord Vamanadev. So in the Skanda Purana, there's one verse, Janmana Jayate Shudra Samskarad Bhaved Dvija Veda Partad Bhaved Vipra Brahma Janatiti Brahmanaha. So this verse is saying that Janmana Jayate Shudra, that anybody who's born at birth, they're a Shudra. Why? Because they don't have any real knowledge of anything. A baby doesn't really know anything about anything, even if a baby is born in a Brahmana family. Really, it's like, how much of a Brahmana is he? He can't really display Brahminical qualities. Babies don't really display self-control. They don't display tolerance or simplicity or all these different things, or religiosity. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born with the umbilical cord around his chest like a Brahmana thread. So, but generally speaking, everybody's born a Shudra in that sense. And then by the Upanayana Samskar, one becomes Dvija, one becomes twice born. And then by study of the Vedas, one becomes Vipra. But a Brahmana, the qualification for a Brahmana is Brahma Janatiti Brahmanaha. In order to be a Brahmana, one has to have Brahma Gyan, one has to have knowledge of Brahman. And of course, Vaishnavas understand Brahman to mean Krishna, to mean the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if one doesn't have knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if one is not a Vaishnava, then he can't be considered a Brahmana. Therefore, Bali Maharaj, he really had there was no fault in him rejecting Shukracharya. Because Shukracharya, he objected when Bali Maharaj wanted to give everything to Lord Vishnu, to Lord Vamanadev. Shukracharya said, don't do it. You're going to lose all your opulence. You're going to lose your kingdom. You're going to, because Bali Maharaj at that point, he had conquered the entire universe. So Shukracharya was only focused on maintaining Bali Maharaj's opulence. But he had no vision that, that everything should be used for the service of the Lord. Therefore, Bali Maharaj, there was no fault in his rejecting Shukracharya. So, from this pastime in the 8th canto, we can see that actually the active principle in the defeat of the demigods wasn't the demons' devotion to Shukracharya, but rather it was the demigods' offense toward Bṛhaspati, because Bṛhaspati was a devotee. And so, although one by the demons' devotion to Shukracharya, they did get some kind of Shakti, they did get some kind of Tejas, some kind of power to defeat the demigods. We see that it was temporary. And just by a slight offense, it wasn't really a slight offense, but just by this one offense toward Bṛhaspati, the demigods lost everything. So really, we can see that a Vaishnava Brahmana, as opposed to Shukracharya, Shukra literally means, it implies semen. Shukracharya was a seminal Brahmana. But the qualification of a Brahmana isn't necessarily that he was born of a particular womb or he was born of a particular father. The qualification of a Brahmana is, like I said, that he knows Brahman. And so this kind of Brahmana, there's this verse that Rishabhadev speaks, Gurur nasasyat swajani nasasyat daivam Swajano nasasyat pitana sasyat janani nasasyat daivam natatsyan napatishya sasyan namoche yasamapeta mrityum. That one shouldn't become a guru, a spiritual master, one shouldn't become a mother, father, demigod, say again? Relative. All these things. One shouldn't basically take any position of leadership leadership over anybody if they don't have the ability to deliver their dependence. So, a real Brahmana, because he knows, he has information about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, he does have the ability to really deliver his dependence. Not just to deliver his dependence from losing their material opulence or deliver his dependence from material suffering or something like that, but a real Brahmana has the ability to deliver his dependents from the cycle of birth and death eternally and reinstate them in their original position as a servant of Krishna. So, therefore, this kind of Brahmana is most worshipable and should be worshipped by everyone. And that's why, like I said, Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish a class of Brahmanas, because this kind of Brahmana, if they're leading society acting in the role of advisor to the Kshatriyas and to others, can make the entire world Krishna conscious. Prabhupada says that the business of the Brahmanas is preaching. The business of the Brahmanas is understanding and distributing Brahma Gyan. So when Brahmanas do this in relation to leading society, then the whole world becomes like Vaikuntha, Srila Prabhupada says. So this is the real qualification of the Brahmanas, is that they lead people to the worship of the Lord. And therefore, they're the real worshipable object in relation to becoming a spiritual master, guiding people, leading people, and creating good fortune for everybody. So I'll stop there and we can have questions. Okay.
A puzzle in Bhagavad Gita 10:37. Krishna is giving so many vibhutis that he has. You know, he's identifying bodies of water on the ocean, etc. And then when it comes to did I get the wrong one? Yeah. Among the Kavis, I am Ushana. Ushana is another name for Shukracharya. So Krishna is identifying, his power with this guru of the demons, who later fights with. Later on in the war, he's fighting with Bṛhaspati. So I always wondered, how is it that he's identifying with that? Of course, he also has, a fish and a shark. So I guess it's not all great.
Yeah, I guess my thought in relation to that is Shukracharya. I mean, Prabhupada mentions that in a purport in the purport to that verse, Guruna Sasyat, he mentions that Shukracharya, he doesn't say that he was like a demon or that he was like, not a devotee. He just says he wasn't a pure devotee. He says he was a mixed devotee. So Shukracharya is very powerful. He was powerful enough to become the guru of the demons. So I guess, yeah, just like you mentioned that example of Krishna says of aquatics and the shark. Sharks aren't necessarily...
They're not especially pious.
Yeah. So, but they're powerful.
Powerful, that's the thing.
Yeah, I guess that's the principle.
Yeah, in this purport, Shukracharya, Prabhupada says, Shukracharya, this is Bhagavad Gita 10:47. Among the Kavis, Ushana, Shukracharya was the spiritual master of the demons. He was an extremely intelligent and far-seeing politician.
So if somebody has intentionally or unintentionally offended their spiritual master, what's the process for atonement? And then is this the path that Indra will eventually take to atone for this?
So the path for atonement for offending the spiritual master, well, one is that one can apologize to the spiritual master if one has unknowingly offended them. Just like with any other Vaishnava, falling at their feet, begging for forgiveness, rendering service. And if you know you've offended the spiritual master, then best is to, rectify oneself. The best way to serve the spiritual master is by serving his instructions. So if one can serve the instructions of the spiritual master with great determination, then then all these offenses can be forgiven. And the spiritual master is very merciful. We see this with the example of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was very merciful. Many of his disciples, like for example, one particular disciple actually, I'm thinking of, caused like a lot of problems for Srila Prabhupada before and after Srila Prabhupada's appearance. During and after Srila Prabhupada's presence in this world. But at one point, I guess I'll just say the name because Prabhupada mentions his name. But in this particular, Kirtanananda Maharaj, during Srila Prabhupada's presence in this world, caused a lot of issues. Prabhupada at one point called him a crazy fellow. He caused a lot of problems, and Prabhupada nearly, a couple of times kind of rejected him. But in 1977, when Srila Prabhupada was leaving this world, Prabhupada said about Kirtanananda Maharaj, he said, service attitude means Kirtanananda. So he forgave him in a lot of ways. Because, he did do service for Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada accepted that service. So in this way, Prabhupada is extremely merciful. So the spiritual master is also very merciful in general. That's the part of the guru principle, is that he's very merciful. So, one should just go on with faith and determination serving the spiritual master.
What about Indra's approach?
Indra's approach, well, Indra tried to find his spiritual master and do that, tried to find him and beg for forgiveness. But Bṛhaspati, at the beginning of the chapter, it's mentioned that Bṛhaspati knew what was going to happen. He knew it was all kind of arranged. So he didn't curse him, and he just kind of walked away and left because he knew what was going to happen. So he kind of wanted to teach Indra a lesson. And this way, it was kind of Bṛhaspati's mercy on Indra. So Bṛhaspati doesn't end up coming back. They get a new spiritual master, and then, yeah. So.
That's a big offense on Indra's part.
Yeah.
And Indra, does he realize this is part of a greater pastime, like Bṛhaspati did? Because he's probably dealing with a lot of feelings.
I mean, in the moment, I don't think so. I mean, that's my speculation. It doesn't seem like he does, just from the, yeah. In the next verse, we'll see they accept Twashta as their new guru.
But unfortunately,
Yeah, but then there's a whole thing that happens with that leading up to the appearance, and yeah, anyway, it's a whole... This is a pretty awesome section of the Bhagavatam. It's a real... Yeah.
I always thought it'd make a great movie.
Yeah. There's a few pastimes in the Bhagavatam that would make great movies, including the churning of the milk ocean would be difficult, but that would make a great movie if somebody could do it right. Yeah, you need a lot of special effects, but that'd be a really, really far out one. So, yeah, if there's nothing else, then I guess we could end. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.